Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. In today's video we're going to have some Division 3 gameplay in Season 6, and we're going to be using Chris Weidman. This was requested by a subscriber called ZZ and he asked me to use Chris Weidman, so we've got two gameplays here using him. As you can see here, I'm just going through his stats because this is the first time in God knows how long I'm using him online. Obviously, in terms of middleweights, he's not going to be frequently used. I mean, if I'm looking to wrestle, I'll either use Jacare Sosa or Yoel Romero. You've got Hamzat as well. But Weidman's a good alternative. I mean, he's not used commonly, and I think that's mainly because obviously his chin health and his ability to recover isn't great. His striking isn't too bad. Obviously, wrestling and ground and pound submissions, clinch work is going to be his strong suit. So your game plan predominantly is going to be to get your opponent on the ground, control them, and that's it. You're going to look to really dominate them, and your finishes are mostly going to come by the way of submissions, decisions, or ground and pound. So that's something you've got to be wary of going into fights. I mean, if you want to use him and you want to give him a try, just bear in mind that you need to finish the fight predominantly on the ground. Obviously, it's not impossible to finish the fight on the feet, but yeah. So as I was alluding to earlier, a bit of his weaknesses are his chin and his recovery. I do actually like his stand-up, although he feels a bit slow. He's got the simples, he's got the fundamentals. Like he's got a nice jab, good hook. He's also got lovely elbows that whenever I come up against him, which like I said is rare, people won't look to utilise. And picking Chris Weidman, a lot of people when coming up against him don't realise that he has that ability to just throw those elbows out, and I think in either this gameplay or the next one I utilise his elbow in a nice little sequence, and I think I get the stun. But right now, as you can see, we're coming up against Israel Adesanya, so I need the fight to stay on the ground primarily, because on the feet he's going to have such a huge advantage as he's got this massive arsenal of strikes, and it's not going to take much to rock me. And once I'm rocked once, it's going to be very hard to recover. So someone I'd compare his recovery levels to is someone, he's probably got a bit better recovery levels, but it's Luke Rockhold. They're very similar. So when I use Luke Rockhold, I'm very careful, and that's the exact same thing I'm going to look to do with Chris Weidman. I'm going to be very, very careful with my approach. I don't want to be drawn into a brawl. He's got decent head movement, so he can avoid these little strikes, and his takedowns are very good. And as you can see here in this fight, I'm actually struggling to get my opponent down. I think I've had 2 takedowns denied. One was from the clinch. So my opponent's doing a good job of keeping this on the feet. And another thing you can look to utilise with Chris Weidman is obviously his clinch. He's got a good clinch game. You can look to do some damage with the knees and the punches to the head, and obviously from there you can shoot for a takedown. And we get my opponent to the ground here, and this is what you're going to do. You're going to look to chain wrestle. You're going to be just constantly looking for those takedowns, and he's got very good submissions, but I'm finding it hard in Season 6 to submit opponents. I'm not sure if they've made any adjustments to the submissions, but from the fights I have been having, I'm finding it a bit harder to get submissions. But again, I'm not sure if that's just me or if it's Chris Weidman I was using him. But overall, he did feel good. I did have around 4 fights using Chris Weidman. The other 2 were really early finishes that I got, and I didn't think it was an accurate representation of how to use Weidman. I mean, I think one was a submission finish in about a minute. My opponent didn't really know what I was doing. I think he was in my placement games. And then the other was a very quick knockout. But obviously, I don't think that's how I want to showcase Weidman. I want to showcase how you're actually going to use him. And my way of using him is going to be more of it's position over submission on the ground. You're going to look to control your opponent, and predominantly most of the finishes with Weidman is going to be a decision finish. But if you utilise his wrestling, you're always going to come up on top. So starting this round, you can see my opponent's throwing these big strikes, trying to close the distance, and we go for a double leg bail there. And then we back away. I just wanted to drive my opponent towards the fence so I can clinch and push against the fence if need be to get a takedown, because my opponent was having some success with takedown denies last round, so it's something I'm going to be wary with. And I don't want to run into a knee and get rocked. So what I done there is I waited for my opponent to drain his stamina, and then we get that spear takedown animation. And another thing that Weidman has that I didn't actually want to showcase because right now it's sort of a meta and everyone's abusing it, and I didn't want to add to that, is he's got the submissions from the clinch, and his submissions are very good. So if need be, you can use that. I feel like I need to say it so people know, because I know a lot of people come up when they use fighters now, they want to know if they have it, and Weidman does have the ability to do that, so that's something you can keep in mind. It's a tool you can use. Right now, as you can see, the Izzy I'm coming up against, right now we're in a good position. If we win this round, that's 2 rounds up, and then we'll be good to just see out the last round if need be. We don't need to look for a finish. And Weidman's very long. He's obviously in this division. There's a lot of good fighters, and if I'm trying to place him up there, obviously he wouldn't be in the top 5. But in terms of grappling and submission ability, he'd maybe be in the top 5. And as you can see there, he does have some power in his hands. You've just got to wait for your opponent to be tired enough. As you can see here, we go for a beautiful head kick because my opponent was very low on stamina. And it's not something I'd recommend doing often. As you can see there, I accidentally went for the standard submission and backed away. But I wouldn't throw head kicks or big strikes like that often with Weidman. I only done it because I knew my opponent's stamina was low and he wouldn't predict it. So that was the end of that fight. My opponent ended up quitting, so I didn't get much points for it. And we're hopping straight into the next fight, which is I'm still in Division 4. My opponent's in Division 3. Obviously right now the divisions don't mean too much, just because it's reset, so you could be facing someone in the Division 3 who was really a top 100 guy last season. So you've got to bear that in mind. We're fighting Vittori, who's I actually haven't used yet, and I probably am going to get a video out with him. But I know his strong suit is more being on the feet. He's got a lot of power, so we're using Weidman. You know what we're going to do: shoot that big takedown and get him down. And the good thing with Weidman is he has the turn-in takedowns, and he also has it from the against the cage, so you can really look to utilize those. He has good, like, I found it quite easy to deny of him, which is very good. Like I was saying, I wouldn't consider him the best grappler in the division, but he's certainly a dark horse. I mean, grappling wise, I really enjoyed using him. His strikes weren't too bad also. I think in this fight we come up against a bit of adversity. I believe we get hurt in this fight towards the 2nd or 3rd round, so you can see his abilities to recover. But if you're good on the ground, you really do have the tools to win fights quite comfortably, as long as you can get the fight to the ground. And you don't really need to panic if you don't, because his stand-up's quite good. But he's got so many tools to get the fight to the ground that there should be no reason for you not to get this fight to the ground. And as you can see here, I was going for the rear naked choke that's broken, but my opponent done a very good job of denying it. And I'm more than content to just, you know, ride onto top mount. And like I said, when I'm using him, position over submission. I want to wear out my opponents, and my perfect game plan to be using Chris Weidman would be to, first round normally have a feel out process if it's a 5-rounder, but because it's a 3-round fight, I don't have the ability to do that. So what I want to do is I want to work my opponent's body. I want to drain their stamina for the first 2 rounds. I want to win both the first 2 rounds ideally, and going into the 3rd, I want to force my opponent to fight a fight they don't want, come to me, push the pace. And then after I get that takedown on a level of stamina, I'm going to look to sink in a submission, just because of how good his submissions are. And yeah, that's my game plan. That's how I'd use him. You've got to be very cautious with the chin, because, you know, at the heavier weight classes, it doesn't take much in order to finish a fight, just because a lot of the fighters have so much power, and Weidman's chin isn't necessarily the best. So you've just got to be smart with how you use him. As you can see, I went for the arm triangle there, and then I ended up denying it because I saw that I had no luck with it. And he's got very good ground and pound. He feels very, very strong from that position. I mean, when I postured up in half guard and threw a couple strikes, I could really feel the power in them. So that's something definitely to utilise, the ground and pound. But you've just got to be cautious to the fact that your opponent could end up slipping a straight and end up on top of you, doing that block animation where they reverse you. So again, it's very much a risk-reward scenario. So the risk is when you're throwing those strikes that your opponent can then reverse the position. The reward is you can do a lot of damage and look to get the fire out of there. So ultimately it's up to you and how you feel, but just by the way I fight, I don't want to take those risks, especially in a 3-round fight where, you know, you could end up on top in the first, let's say, minute, and then they flip you, they are on top the rest of the round. They've got to win that round in the judges' scorecard. So going into round 2, my opponent knows what I want to do, of course. I want to get him on the ground, and I don't really want to get hit by Vettori. Vettori's got power, and with my chin health and my recovery ability, it's not really ideal, so I'm trying not to get hit. But I don't want to just keep it at kickboxing range. You can see I clinch here, push my opponent towards the fence. He ends up getting out just in time. I was going to look to take my opponent's back and then work the fight onto the ground. I was going to do the turning takedown, turn up in side control, and just see where I can go from there. Through the roundhouse to the body, which had some impact. But as you can see, my opponent's doing a better job than in round 1. As you can see, he denied the takedown, he's pressuring me a bit more. And the one thing you've got to be careful with Weidman, although he has good boxing, the route to beating Weidman is you need to pressure him, you need to get that rock off, and you need to constantly be in the boxing range. As you see there, I get hit, I get hurt. I end up recovering quite quickly, but that might be due to the fact I haven't taken much head damage, and also that my stamina was in a good position. So don't look at that and think, oh okay, that's quite a decent recovery. It's only round 2, I haven't taken too much damage, and even that, with that being said, even though I haven't taken too much damage, I still got stunned. So yeah, we managed to get the takedown, and here I'm going to look to, well, I was going to look to inflict some damage of my own, but ideally I was going to go to side control, but where my opponent had the stamina advantage, it didn't let me get there. So right now I'm looking to just, you know, deny these transitions. I go for an armbar here, which it was too early to go for an armbar. Now I'm looking, my opponent's stamina was in a good position, but this is good because I can test my opponent's ability to get out of submissions. As you see, he's moving quite quick, but his escape bar is also going up really quickly, so my opponent's done a good job of getting out of the submission. I cancel so that I don't get into stage 2 and then my opponent ends up on top. And if you don't know how to cancel submissions, it's L1 and R1. It's a very useful tool because there's times when you know you're not going to be able to get that submission sunk in, and by cancelling it you can remain in the advantageous position that you're in prior to. It's something that I'd recommend using. It's something that I've been using for a while now. I don't think a lot of people know how to utilise effectively. And here I was in a good position, but my opponent again is doing a good job. And although obviously my opponent's Division 3, he's doing a very good job. And as you see now, he ends up his side control because I went to north-south. I was looking for the windshield choke because that's quite a good choke, it's quite an overpowered choke. But unfortunately didn't have it, and where I haven't used Weidman so long, I didn't realise that he didn't have that choke. And the end of round 2, I'd probably give round 2 to my opponent where he got the stun, and I feel like more damage that round, done well with the takedown denies. He's being very respectful, my opponent here. And going into round 3, I need to win this round in order to win the fight. It's imperative. So we know that round 3, I'm going to look for this takedown, and I'm going to look to control my opponent for the rest of the round. Our stamina levels are both very, very high for round 3 because our outputs have been very minimal. We've had very similar outputs, obviously. I've just had the greater control time through round 1, and my opponent just had a more successful round 2. But here, I'm not really looking to exchange. I really, really need this fight to go onto the ground, and I just need to control the fight either to get the decision victory or look for a submission. But as I was saying with the stamina levels, because my opponent's stamina is quite high, it's not going to be the easiest thing in the world to pull off a submission victory, especially now where I feel like submissions are a lot harder to do. Again, I'm not sure if they've changed something in Season 6 towards submissions, but I feel like it's easier for the person trying to escape them. And I ended up getting my opponent down. I shot for a takedown as they were jabbing, and I feel like that's an effective way of getting your opponent down. Is when they throw a jab, you duck under it with the takedown attempt, and often not you get it. And also if someone sways backwards and you shoot for a takedown, it's very easy to get it because it's hard for them to deny whenever they're using head movement. That's another tool that I utilise quite often. You saw it with the Yan and Israel fight in real life, where Israel sways backwards when he had shot for the takedown, he'd get it just because the momentum was already there. Izzy was already pushing himself back, so yeah, I would shoot and get it. And I feel like that's the case in this game. When you're using your head movement, it's hard to block low, and obviously blocking low is how you block the transition for the. It's how you deny, sorry, your opponent taking you down. As you see, right now it's been a fairly even. We did get the stun because I hit him with that beautiful elbow, and that's how you got to sneak those elbows in. And when you do sneak them in, they're vicious. They do a lot of damage, as you can see there, because my opponent wasn't expecting it. Snuck it in and got the stun. Now we've got the takedown, and here we're just going to look to dominate. See, this position right here is ideally where you want to be with Weidman. We deny the transition here. We go for the submission. And again, my opponent's stamina is low, but not low enough. And just look how quick he's escaping. I'm not sure if it's me, if I'm doing something wrong, or they've updated the submissions and made it easier to get out. But my opponent's just getting out of this at quite a fast rate. And my opponent's going to end up on top with this submission attempt. I'll go all the way this time, and just see if I can lock in another stage, and it will look better on the judges' scorecards. But we didn't manage to. And another thing you can do, which I've said before to waste time, is if you're on the bottom and there's not much left and you're just trying to see out a round, go for another submission, which is what I do here. We go for the armbar, and I know I'm not going to get it because my opponent's doing a good job here, and I don't have much time on the clock. It usually takes around 50 seconds to get a submission from an armbar. So again, as you can see, this one's a bit more closer actually, so maybe I should have got for an armbar earlier. But yeah, you've done it to run down the clock. So that's the fight over. I believe I had round 1 and round 3. As you can see, my opponent very respectful there, and we end up winning this fight, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we won the fight, so I'm going to show you the judges' scorecards. So that was me using Weidman. Obviously, like I said, a decent wrestler, probably top 5 in terms of grappling ability in middleweight. Obviously, weakness being the chin and recovery, but he was fun to use. If there's any more fighters you'd like me to use, please let me know in the comments below. That was today's video. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.